the opinions of Touch Radio or its staff.
Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do what makes us feel right.
Hello, hello, hello. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Soul Purpose Show.
Good morning, everybody. So I am Monica.
And I am Keith. We're your hosts.
So we are, for our Facebook family, we are also streaming live on Instagram, which is the first time that we have done this. So I'm trying to look at both sets of people. So we are streaming live on Instagram as well. So hello also to our Instagram family. If you are part of our Facebook family, we thank you again for joining us on this Saturday. But we also want you to go over to Instagram and follow us on Instagram. And our Instagram handle is @SoulPurposeShow.
And obviously our home base, which you can always find us on In Touch News Internet Radio, where everyone is a star. I am here back with my star, my superstar co-host.
Oh, that's so
Monica.
sweet.
Well, you know what? We're still doing the Mother's Day love from Sunday, because technically it's still Mother's Day week. Right.
Is it, I didn't even think
so
about
tell everybody what your husband did for you for Mother's Day.
So I am only really big on two holidays. I'm big on my birthday. Well, that's three: birthday, Christmas, Mother's Day. And for those of you all who know my story about Mother's Day, and that's a whole separate podcast. But for a long time, I was not able to celebrate Mother's Day because I had fertility issues. So 5, almost 6 years ago, Keith and I adopted our son. Yes. And so Mother's Day is huge. So I was really witchy leading up to Mother's Day because I didn't know what Keith was had planned, which is weird because you really shouldn't tell me what you planned. But so anyway, so that was your question. We went.
Which is a good characterization, though.
I acted really ugly. I had to apologize to him. I did act ugly, but we went home to see my mom, and we cooked out, and we sat on the lanai, and.
Can I tell you how hot it is in West Palm Beach? West Palm Beach is hot. It's Africa hot. When you leave the middle of Florida and go south, you think you're still in Florida. It's hot down there.
It's so funny that you say that because it's humid for sure, but I don't think it's hotter than here. Well, I don't think it's hotter than Tampa. But anyway, so I had a very good Mother's Day. My husband grilled, my brother and his family came over. I got to watch my middle baby niece play softball in the softball tournament. So it was a really full weekend. And I sent a text message to our son's birth mother thanking her for the gift of motherhood. So I was really full all weekend. And she did reply. A very simple Happy Mother's Day response. So I was extremely full. It was a really, really good Mother's Day. So you did a very good job.
Thank you. And my highlight of the weekend was we also have a dog, begrudgingly. It's a little Westie Poo, but he is an alpha dog.
Oh gosh, yes.
And the ducks that played behind my mother-in-law's house thought that they could just kind of go on with their lives as usual. And he had a good time chasing them.
So what happened was I washed our dog before we went south.
Yes.
And
he's a male dog.
He's a male dog. And so we don't have ducks here. We have birds, but he don't really chase the birds here because they're much bigger than him. So he's a terrier. So terriers, they chase rodents. If you know anything about dogs. But so he's never seen ducks before, and he's still a puppy. So he was curious. And my nephew wanted to really walk the dog. He loves the dog. And so they were walking along. My mom stays on water, walking along the lake. And our Brody sees the ducks. And I told our nephew, hold on to the dog.
Baby.
And the dog got loose. Yes. And the next thing I know, I heard, oh my gosh, he's in the water.
Yes.
So Brody jumped in
the water after them ducks.
After the nasty water, after the ducks, and he had just had a bath, and so I had to bathe him all over again.
But he made it clear. And
I like for you to reflect that all those adults were sitting on the lanai, and not one of them.
No, I wasn't gonna move.
Not one of them moved, and then our poor nephew was just covered in mud because he was trying to get the dog before the dog jumped in the water. But the poor baby.
Tell you what though, those ducks know what you're not gonna do is come up here like you own the place when I'm here, because that's how he rolls.
That's true. So I want to do a shout out for to the people that are on our Instagram. We have two of our Soul Purpose kids who were tuned in. We have Anila and Kennedy tuned in. So
if
happy
y'all have
Saturday.
not seen the Soul Purpose kids, you are missing a treat. I mean, these guys are it's their show. It's their show.
Yes, it is their show.
Really
they do everything. So they've done a phenomenal job with Soul Purpose Kids. So looking forward to the next episode. Hint, hint. But good morning, Anila and Kennedy.
So listen, so what we're going to do today, and shout out to Clint Paris and the professor that usually bring in the kind of the political commentary on the show that precedes us, which is Straight Up the Middle. Outstanding if you haven't checked that out. But Monica and I, fortunately, the theme for our show, we get to have fun on our show. Yes. So we get to talk about all kinds of stuff. So we'll delve into politics a little bit, but we're going to talk about relationships, which is one of my favorite subjects. So we're going to kick off actually a series of conversations on relationships. So Monica and I are a team, as you know, we're our co-hosts, we're partnership, but we're also married. And some would argue that we appear happily married, which is
appear.
Well, no, that's what people say. This is you guys are happily married. So we consider that a compliment. But what we also know is that marriage is work and relationships is work, because love is like a big maze, right? Mm-hmm. So you have to figure out. You're always having to kind of navigate through it and figure out kind of how to get through it, because there's no straight line to marital bliss or successful relationships, right? So. Mm-hmm. So that's what we're going to be talking about for this show, and we're going to bring back additional shows, talk about some other topics moving forward.
So if y'all see me look down, that's because I'm trying to ensure that everything's okay on the streaming end. So we're going to talk about relationships, and what sparked this this conversation or this topic. I do not watch Real Housewives of Atlanta, but I do not watch, and I admittedly I have, so I'm not gonna lie, I have in the past. Mm-hmm. I have not watched Real Housewives of Atlanta in a very, very, very long time, so I don't really know many of the characters on there. I do admittedly, however, watch on occasion Real Housewives of Potomac. That's because one of my soror is on there. Mm-hmm. And so I do watch that one, but notwithstanding. So if you were on social media at all this week, then you heard about this kerfuffle or whatever that little word is between Porsha and Fallon and Fallon's ex-husband.
They're still married.
They're still something. Simon. And so the backstory is allegedly, and I think all of it is produced and, you're trying to get more viewers, so you're going to create a story. But notwithstanding, let's assume for purposes of our conversation, that's not created. So apparently Fallon and Simon were married. Are married currently. They're separated, but I guess getting a divorce. Mm-hmm. And in Georgia, you have to wait a certain period of time before your divorce is final to ensure that you don't want to try to make amends. Right. And so in that separation period, apparently Simon and Porsha are now in a relationship.
Oh, they're very much in a
relationship. Which may not be necessarily a thing, but here's the thing. Porsha and Fallon are friends in the reality TV world. Right. And so that is what caused all of the kerfuffle.
Well, and it's also the time that has elapsed between, the breakup, if you will, from Fallon or whatever they call her and her husband, and the time that now, Porsha and he have come out and announced that they are in a relationship. So one of the questions is just how fast the whole thing happened.
So apparently, I think the story is that if the divorce decree was, or the divorce filings were in January, they started dating. I guess they, being Porsha and Simon, started to date within the last month. So I thought I've been on some other social media sites, and so there's been a lot of conversation about it. I've just been ear hustling and listening because I have my own personal opinion, but I told Keith this would be a really good conversation. He does not watch reality TV, had no clue who any of these people were. You know who Porsha is, though? Porsha is the granddaughter of, Reverend Hosea Williams, who is so that's her granddaddy.
Okay, well, good for her.
So she comes from good stock. She's just making bad decisions.
Well, yeah, and she's active her past relationship history.
Well, you know, she used to be married to Cordell Stewart.
So she's active.
Well, I mean, he cheated on her. So, I mean, she's been, to her in her defense, yes. And this is the part that I did watch. Porsha has had a string of bad relationships. So yes. The Cordell Stewart situation, and then I think the father of her daughter cheated on her while she was pregnant. Yeah. So she's had a string of bad relationships just based on the little bit of, gossipy.
And so the judginess that you hear in my tone is, she's active. And so, so this is her history. And so now the married dude who's still married and trying to work out the divorce, whatever situation. Now she's engaged to.
Yeah, so allegedly she's engaged.
No, they are engaged. All right, listen. So
I'm not even, we'll get into that.
Okay, we're going to get into that.
Again, I set the backdrop. My perspective on this is that this is all produced for purposes of viewership. And so we're adding to the conversation, just furthering the discussion. But we're not going to talk about them too long, but that is the basis of why we're going to do this series and why we're having this conversation.
Absolutely. And so one of the things, the themes that we hear around relationships a lot is how, the question of friendships plays into romantic relationships. And so what we thought we would do for the first time on live television is share the story, is to kind of share the real story of how we got together. And give some of the backdrop for some of the questions. What do you mean? Why was just joking? There was nothing nefarious about how we got together. But we figured we would just share with people because there's a friendship aspect to it that I think is relevant to our conversation today. So we're just going to go back to, why don't you start? So start back in 2003 when you first started pursuing me as a love interest. Tell the folks how that happened.
I would move over so lightning doesn't strike us both, but I can't because then the people on IG won't be able to see us. That is a lie. That is a lie from the pits of hell. I did not pursue you on any level back in 2003.
What happened in 2003?
We went for lunch. So Keith was a client.
Before we went for lunch, though.
No,
that's not how we met. We didn't meet.
We met. Okay, so we've told this story before, but anyway, so Keith was a client. I'm an attorney. Keith was a client of the firm that I was working for at the time, and the managing shareholder of the firm, my boss. We had a seminar, and Keith attended, and the managing partner at the firm thought it would be a good idea to introduce us. I will assume it's because both of us went to Florida A&M, yes. But it also could have been that Keith was the only Black man that was there.
Okay, so you've already kind of told a different perspective of
That's
the story.
truth.
No, so I was not a client of the firm. I was a former client of your managing partner, but I also attended the seminar. I think I probably paid for that, so maybe that qualifies me as a client.
But
I came to the seminar at his invitation. He was my former labor counsel, outside labor counsel. And he said, didn't you go to Florida A&M University? I said, yeah, I sure did. He said, we just hired a young attorney, a young, cute.
I'm positive he did not say that.
Tall drink of water.
I'm sure he didn't say
out
that.
of Florida A&M University.
I appreciate that, but I'm certain he did not say that.
And I'd like to introduce you guys. And so that's what happened. Now here's the real story. So the story was I was actually separated from my ex-wife at the time. And
facts.
Yeah, and so I ran into Monica there, and I said, "Oh, she's cute, cute young thing, and smart too." On top of that, so I decided to try to get the phone, exchange the phone numbers and all of that, and I think we did meet for lunch once.
Yes, we did meet for lunch.
So we should go grab lunch. So we went and grabbed lunch and had a nice, calm, whatever, non evidentiary lunch, and then I think it was. I mean,
it was real. It was
professional.
It was extremely professional.
And was it at that time that you asked me?
I sure did. So I thought he was attractive. I thought he's kind of cute. And he's tall. I'm tall, so I tend to like taller men. And I noticed he wasn't wearing a ring. But just because they're not wearing a ring doesn't necessarily mean that they're not with someone or married.
Right.
So I asked.
Pimp move.
I don't know about pimp move or whatever. I just know. So ladies, if you meet a man, there are certain questions that should be asked.
Like, are you currently married?
are you married is one of them, whether you're currently or not. Are you married, current, whatever? That's a question that should be asked.
Yes.
So I did ask.
Yep.
I don't remember how I asked, but I did ask if you were married.
And I said, yes, currently separated, but I am still married. And you said, check, please.
I sure did. I said, well, it's very nice meeting you for lunch.
And that was it. So, I mean, and when I say that was it, I mean, like literally that was it. So
I'm not going to hell.
Well, I mean, okay, then there's that. But we really from that point forward, I mean, we traveled in the same professional circles after that. And I did go back to my wife, by the way, my ex-wife.
Which is exactly why I asked the question, which is exactly why I said, check, please. So ladies, let that be a clue. Just because you separated, unless I don't know if I'd asked you to file the divorce papers.
I don't remember if you had asked. I remember that. I think you were pretty much out at still married and separated. And I said, yeah, but I think, we're apart now. So I don't know if we're getting back together.
Yeah. The whole, I don't know if we're getting back together thing.
Yeah. And so I got back, I got back together with my ex-wife, and we were together. We were stayed together another 7 years after that.
So I'm saying I'd have been, I love Jesus and I'm not trying to go to hell. Continue.
So I think it was again, fast forward, 7 years. The divorce filing happened this time. So we split up for real.
And in between that time, I got married and divorced.
Yep.
Correct.
And so I was separated, but we were already kind of in court working on our settlement. And I actually had a company event to go to that I needed an escort for, that I wanted an escort for.
Don't say escort. Say you needed a date. Or you wanted somebody to accompany you. Don't say escort.
I wanted someone to accompany. I would have took an escort.
I don't have anything to do with that. Just if I had money, I probably would have. I don't use.
But you were free, so I was like, no. But we were friends. Okay, so here's the key. The key thing is we were friends. We were friends because I would see you around at various, events or whatever, and we were just. I mean, it was just it. We were friends. Like we talked and, hey, how you been? How's it going? Oh, you got married? Whatever. But there was nothing happening between us. So you were someone that I knew professionally,
correct,
as a friend, and I knew that you were someone that I could trust, could go to this company
and not embarrass you.
So
I wasn't going to twerk in the middle of
although you weren't too far removed from twerk lifestyle, but anyway. But you went to the thing with me, and we had a nice time, and introduced everybody to you, and people were like, "Oh, she's this, that, the other." I was like, "I'm gonna marry this one."
I'm sure. I'm positive that you did not say that.
But that's how we met.
That is
and that's
true.
How we started dating, and then over the course of the following year or so, divorce was final. We finally kind of worked out everything, and then that was it. So. Go ahead.
So that leads into the question. Were you going to lead into the question?
I was.
Okay, I'll let you go ahead and do that.
No, go ahead.
So it leads into the question, which is one of the questions that I saw in the midst of all this discussion about Porsha, Fallon, and Simon about whether or not you should date someone who is separated, whether or not dating while separated is appropriate.
Well, and also how soon after the breakup of a relationship should you even start, seeing other people? And dating other people, because breaking up is breaking up. So if you're in a relationship, a long-term relationship, and you break up, then there's this time period after that where you sometimes decide that I'm just going to chill. I'm not going to get involved in another relationship. Marriage is the same way. You break up marriage just doesn't end today. It ends over a course of time. So typically there's some period of separation. So how long should you wait before you start seeing people?
So I'm going to pose that question to our Instagram family, our Facebook family, and for the folks who are listening on the radio with In Touch News, to you all. Chime in for In Touch News folks, call in. What is your opinion in terms of how long one should wait between the time that one is separated and the time that one starts to date?
Yeah. I
don't know if there's any right answer to that, because full disclosure, when I was getting divorced, I was the one that wanted the divorce. No shade to my ex-husband, very nice guy. We just weren't right for each other. Once I filed the papers, because for me the marriage was over, and so there was no further connection there. I filed the paperwork. He'd been served with the paperwork, I believe, at that time, and I knew that there was going to be no reconciliation. And so in my mind, I was not
single and ready to mingle.
I didn't go all that, but I started dating, and I didn't feel. I know people have their thoughts about that.
Mhm.
And you know, Black folks like to rumor and gossip and have conversations instead of just coming to the people. Y'all could have come to me, I'd have told you, but it's whatever because y'all know I'm pretty transparent. But that was my timeline. I once the paperwork was filed, I knew I was done. That was it for me. So, and divorce takes a long time because the court system is slow, and even if it's a non-contested divorce,
It's still a process.
it's still a process. And so that was that for me.
Yeah, and I think when you talk about that process in and of itself, the process is not just the legal process, but there is an emotional process as well. Because if you're in a relationship with someone, especially a marriage, but in a long-term relationship with someone, then there are emotions involved.
Correct.
So there's
And someone said that on Instagram. So you should wait. The comment is you should wait until it's all over and take care of you so you don't end up with a whole lot of drama. I agree with that.
and that's really kind of what our tips. So and we'll fast forward to the tips because yes, um, whoever our friend is that commented, that is absolutely correct. So
Somebody else in that comment too, but go ahead.
So one of the things that leads to successful relationships, and this is kind of the old folks' wisdom. I never will forget my grandfather saying to me as a young man one time. He says, you know, and he didn't say a whole lot. So when he talked, everybody kind of listened because he was just kind of one of those presents. And he said, you know, when you get with a person, when you get married, you got to make sure going in that you got a good understanding.
Mm-hmm.
And that was
That's
and
good
those
advice.
words have really haunted me for a while. So what we've decided to do is is the number, like, okay, so there's another data point here called the number one reason why most marriages fail,
Mm-hmm.
and it's around unmet expectations. So you have an expectation of one thing, and then something else happens, and there's all kinds of aspects to that. But for that reason is why we want to take this opportunity to share some tips
Okay.
on how to be successful,
so I do-
and how to have a good understanding going in.
So I do. Somebody said, Sorian on Facebook said, separated is not divorce. I don't think separated people should date for the reason Keith stated. He ended up getting back with his wife, too risky. And she said she doesn't think there's a certain time frame to start dating after a divorce, but the people should take time to heal before starting something new. And I agree. I think for me, because we started, full transparency, Keith and I started dating before his divorce was final.
It was final. Mm-hmm.
Now I don't think we're going to hell, but we asked for forgiveness. But for me, it was I was emotionally out of the marriage, my first marriage, before I actually pulled the trigger. And that's just me being fully transparent and real. Does that mean that I should have waited until the divorce was final, and both people signed the papers? Probably. And conventional wisdom says that probably was true. There was also a lot of other things going on during that time too. My dad was sick. So a lot of other tangential things that were going on at the time. And so in hindsight, I probably should have waited. But in my mind, I was emotionally done. So I did not feel that me dating other people, although the divorce was not final in the books, I didn't feel like I was cheating. And I recognize that people have different opinions.
There's different opinions on it, and I concur with you because it was the same way. I made the decision to start seeing other people because I kind of felt like my ex was giving me permission to do it because she was doing the same thing. So we just had our relationship was over.
Yeah.
So when the relationship is over, I think if you have emotionally detached yourself, I want to touch on healing though, because that was a key phrase that was in that comment. Healing, to me, emotionally healing comes about several different ways. I think people think about healing like you go off into a dark room someplace and meditate, and therefore the healing can start or the healing can begin. And so healing usually means not involve other people, stay celibate, stay whatever. And that's the part that I really kind of take issue with because healing is different for different people.
Right.
Some people, and I'm not, and here's the real tip. The real tip is, you don't carry mess into another person's life when you are healing from a relationship. But if you go to a movie with somebody or you spend time, walking in the park and holding hands or whatever it is that you do just to get through that process, sometimes that other individual is acting in a manner to help you heal without really kind of getting into those psychology of, well, tell me what went wrong and what was wrong with you and your ex, and have you thought about this, that, or the other. Sometimes you really just kind of spending time with someone. And I'm just speaking from a male perspective. What I went through as a man was this whole feeling of worthiness. Whether it's your fault or the other person's fault or your decision or the other person's decision, you're always going to feel like, am I worthy? I've just had a failed relationship. Yeah. So am I worthy of being happy, or am I worthy of being in a relationship? And sometimes hanging out with somebody else helps you do that.
And I would share though that with your once you and I got together, my divorce was final. And then I actually helped you from a legal perspective, just from a strictly friendship perspective, helped navigate him through his divorce in terms of providing suggestions about how he should address certain things. But it was completely platonic. I wasn't I wasn't selfishly motivated in that space. And so I do agree with you. And I think if whoever's dating someone who makes a decision to date someone who is separated, the divorce is not yet final, be very cautious as you enter, particularly when the person's been married for a long time and they may have children and there's lots of stuff to kind of work out. Really kind of be there just as a listening ear and don't do a compare and contrast. Because the reasons the relationship broke up, the reason the relationship broke up have nothing to do with you, and you don't want to be a rebound. So I think I agree that you should take time to really kind of find out and heal for yourself. But healing, as you said, is different for everybody.
It is different. And I had people who were good friends. I mean, good friends, trusted confidants who had given sage advice in the past, telling me, whatever you do, keep yourself completely free from other distractions going through the divorce. All the way to the point where they were saying, just make sure that you don't get involved with somebody else until after divorce, because it is a distraction and it keeps you, from staying focused on. Now, every divorce is different, right? Yeah. So some divorces are warfare. And when you're in warfare, you're kind of doing things to
hurt the other person.
To hurt the other person and to stop yourself from being hurt. So, I mean, I get all of that. But I just don't subscribe to then what you have to do is that you cannot be involved with on any level another human being. You just have to be upfront with them and say, here's where I am. We're still going through it. Take things slow, whatever.
Ultimately do what's right for you and what you can emotionally handle. And that's for, if you're single and you're dating someone who's in the midst of a divorce, because divorce is ugly.
Yeah.
And it can be hard because if you are a person that prides yourself on being successful, a divorce is a failure, and that's just real. It is a failure, and so you have to, in addition to the breakup of a relationship, and hopefully it's not nasty, but if it is, you're dealing with the nastiness surrounding it. You're also dealing with the failure that's associated with the breakup of a union. So.
Of something that you went into
believing that it was going to last forever. So
absolutely. So in the words of the great Porsha Williams, she said, and I quote, "Our relationship began a month ago. Yes, we are crazy in love, and by the way, they are engaged. I know it's fast, but we are living life each day to its fullest. I choose happiness every morning and every night." So I mean, as selfish as that might sound, the optics of it just come across real self-absorbed and self-consumed. But here's the reality. It's just like when people pass away. You can't, mourn someone's passing to the point where you're dying every single day after someone dies, because life is really about living.
Life goes on.
Life is for the living. And if you're going to be in this thing called life, then get the most out of it while you're alive.
So be happy. I mean, at the end of the day, the only person that can judge you is the man above. So people are going to talk and have discussions about how they feel you should have handled a particular situation. I know that happened for me. But at the end of the day, I am happy. My ex-husband is happy. We've moved on. And I think that we are both thriving in our particular spaces, because sometimes the relationships just don't work. And I would prefer that that the relationship's not going to work before you bring children, because then it just makes things so much more complicated. We'll probably talk about that.
Yeah, when we come out on the other side of the break, we're going to talk about whether men and women can even be friends.
All right. So for our Facebook people and In Touch News, we will be back.
We are gonna do what makes us feel right. I'm just getting off the train. Damn, it seems I didn't work all day.
When it comes to reality radio, everyone is a star.
I know that's right.
On your smooth soul and R&B station.
On the World Wide Web.
Access granted.
In Touch Radio.
Welcome to Calvin's Barbershop.
You all got to see this.
I don't even want to know what you're looking at on that phone.
Well, you should. I was learning about the dangers of high blood pressure and that we need to get ours checked regularly. High blood pressure can increase the risk of heart attack or stroke, but this text program can help keep it at a healthy range. Just text Barbershop to 97779 to sign up.
I'll get right on it as soon as I'm done with this baby panda video.
Text Barbershop to 97779. A message from the American Heart Association and the Ad Council.
It's important to plan ahead for emergencies, like the storm. When it kicked in, we had a plan. We were able to get in touch with each other in no time.
Idea how to find each other.
The whole experience was fine.
the most frightening 10 hours of my life.
If there's one piece of advice I'd offer other moms out there, it's to stay calm and keep to the plan.
Some parents plan ahead, some don't. Make sure you know where to find your family in an emergency. Start your plan at ready.gov. Brought to you by FEMA and the Ad Council.
Smoothing out your favorite R&B flavors.
What's your flavor? Tell me what's your flavor.
In Touch Radio.
Wherever we go, we about to bring on the positive vibe. Wherever we go, we are gonna do what makes us feel right.
So we are back.
We are back.
We were in the commercial break. We were talking to the folks on IG, and I mentioned to Keith that we spent we're talking about for relationships and whether or not you should date somebody when they're separated. We spent the whole first half, you focused on Porsha. Porsha is not the one that's married. Simon is the one that's married, and Simon is the one that took the vows. So why do we so focus on the woman? That is the height of hypocrisy. That is the height of patriarchy and whatever other archy you want to add on to that. Porsha is not the person that's married. Simon is married and still married.
Do you see how fine that woman is?
Oh, I mean, she's beautiful. But at the end, Simon's ex-wife or soon-to-be ex-wife is attractive too. I just think that it's interesting that we're talking about this particular situation, and this is the backdrop of our conversation. And the focus is what the woman did, and the woman didn't take any vows. It was the man who took the vows.
Which has lured this poor man, and he's trying to go through a divorce, and all of a sudden, well, I mean, the show talks about, and again, I don't watch the show, but even the synopsis of the show talks about how, she was invited to go along to all of these events they were having, the pool parties and what have you. So while her husband is there, there's also these other friends, including the friend who is now engaged to her husband. So they had some interaction prior to the breakup. So
there's a question on Facebook, and I want to read it because that's actually a very good question. So the question is: did you meet the ex-wife husband when making the decision or having a have a conversation? How do you know that it's really over between that person and the spouse when they are just separated and not divorced? What was said or done to assure you that it was really over while dating before the divorce? That's an excellent question. I can speak for me personally. No, I did not, for a variety of reasons that we will not get into. But I did talk to him, and when Keith and I before we started dating, we were friends. And so for us personally, it was clear to me, based on our conversations, that he was not going back. He was not going back. She was not going back. Their relationship was absolutely over. And so I felt comfortable engaging, whether that's right or wrong. I felt comfortable enough engaging, because remember when he approached me the first time, they were separated, and I was like, no. But
then we got to know one another.
But then we got to know,
and
because he knew my standards, I think he respected me. The fact that I did not attempt to engage him when he was separated the first time. I think that you valued me as a person, that he wouldn't have lied. So I was pretty secure in the fact that they were not getting back together.
Yeah,
that's a really good question.
It really is, and we're going to talk more about trust a little bit later. But
in another episode, or
no, a little bit later in this episode
okay.
too. But I wanted to. I think I kind of teased this before we went to break. Is to talk about friendship in a relationship, and really can men and women be friends? Because I think a part of the backdrop of the Real Housewives show or issue is when you have a friend that is your friend, you are introducing them to other people of the opposite sex or whatever as friends. And so your expectation is that they are friendly as well. They become friends. And if they are friends, then you don't automatically have an expectation that, well, if something ever happened to you, then the two of them might hook up and the two of them might hook up. So it really kind of speaks to a key question, which is, can men and women really be friends? And I'm gonna set it up like this. Here's an opinion. I believe it is overrated. One of the most overrated things that is said is that when you are considering a spouse, I'm looking into the camera. When you're considering a spouse, make sure that you're marrying your best friend. I think is overrated.
And I firmly disagree. I firmly disagree.
And why do you disagree?
Because
Before I tell you why you're wrong.
So I am of the belief you can fall out of love with the person, right? And when you fall out of love with the person, let me back up for a second. I also, and maybe it's the lawyer in me, I believe marriage is a contract. It is a relationship. You are building something together, right? And so when you're building something together, you have to be able to trust the person that you're building with, that they have your best interest at heart, right? Okay. So you can fall out of love with a person. So people get me, oh, I'm so in love with him. He makes my heart flutter. Oh, there's fireworks and fairies and everything and whatever. That's important for sure. But to me, what is also probably equally as important is a friendship, because I believe that everybody has the capacity to cheat. Everybody has the capacity to cheat. What stops somebody from cheating, in my opinion, is not the love. It is the friendship, because you value the friendship. You value the friendship, and I can lose the person I love. If I'm in love with you and you in love with me, I don't really like you, but I do love you for whatever the reasons are. I see somebody that I'm attracted to because she stimulates, or he or she stimulates me mentally, I may decide to tip. But if I'm in the back of my mind saying, if I do this, I am not only violating the love that we share in a marriage, I am also violating a friendship. And I believe that men, and I'm not a man, this is my assumption, just based on my observation, that men value their friendship, just like women value their friendships.
Absolutely.
But men value their friendships, I believe, more than they value those people that they have love interest in.
Fascinating. I think, generally speaking, you're right. Friendships are substantive more.
Pause and say that again. Generally
speaking, one of the points that you
I don't skip over it. Generally speaking, you are.
Well, you're correct about friendships. Friendships, friendships are deeper. True friendships are deeper. Some lifelong friendships, especially, have stood the test of time, and that's what really marriages and successful relationships are supposed to be about. Is how do you sustain over time, not just how you sustain right now, where you might be feeling strong feelings with one another. The only reason, here's the thing that's missing for me, and I give this marital advice to people, young people who are considering getting married, and I say, look, I did it once unsuccessfully, doing it again, I think successfully, and here is the difference between marriages that end up not in divorce and marriages that end up divorced. What keeps you together more than anything else is a decision. It's a decision that you make every single day. Friendships to me are about friendliness sometimes. Are you friendly towards one another? What you're talking about now is respect, like do we respect one another enough to not cheat? Do we respect one another enough we value our friendship enough to not do these other things? I will tell you, in a marriage, in both my marriages, you wake up some morning, I ain't your friend. I'm not friendly with you. I don't like you today.
But
I don't want to hang out with you. I don't even, you get on my nerves. I just can't stand you. And the thing that sustains me is that I made that decision at 6 o'clock in the morning, not at 7 o'clock in the morning when you got on my nerves. I made a decision at 6 o'clock in the morning. I made a decision after the argument at 7 o'clock. I made a decision late in the middle of the day when you hung up the phone on me. I made a decision at the end of the day when I come home, you act like you don't want to talk to me. I make a decision every single day that this is my spouse, this is who I love, and this is who I made a commitment with. I'm going to be with her regardless, even though we're not friends right now. And we usually can be not friends for about 24 to 48 good hours. Strong.
I've never not been your friend for longer. I mean,
absolutely.
That's not true. That's not true.
Okay, well, she considered me her friend. I didn't consider her my friend.
And so I think a lot of it has to
didn't consider her my friend
and
at all.
And that's fine. I think a lot of it depends on how you define friendship. And I already know that we define friendships very differently.
Could be.
Keith thinks everybody his friend. Our next door neighbor who got a Trump sign, Keith considers potentially, because I don't. I'm very particular about who I attach that label to. Mm-hmm. So my friendship circle, if I consider you a friend, that to me is
sacred.
It is, because I've instilled in you a level of trust that I don't extend to everybody else. And then as the closer you get, you are family. So like my friends from fam, they're not friends anymore, they are family, mm-hmm. right? So I think a lot of it has to do with how you define friendship. And I know that you're friends with some people, and I don't understand why you're friends with them, because I couldn't be friends with them.
See, and there we go.
But
people say that about people who are in marriages. Like, well, how are they together? Because they don't even look like they like each other that much. And so friendships to me are, to your point, friendships are friendships. Friendships are valued and friendships are trusted. And sometimes friendships come and go. Honestly, friendships friendships are optional. And you have people who you were friends with when you were younger, or friends with in high school, or friends in college, or friends at your first job that you took, that are no longer your friends. Not because you hate them, but it's just friendships are just, they're more fluid. To me, the differentiator is, if you marry your best friend, that's great. I think that's wonderful. But I'm gonna marry somebody this time around. I'm gonna marry somebody that I'm gonna wake up every single morning knowing that she might not necessarily, be my best friend today. We may not even be friendly today. But the thing that's going to stop me from filing divorce papers is, no, this is us till death do us part is a decision. And we got to go through this phase and this season and the next season when you threw something at me and hit me in the head.
I've never done that.
You've hit me in the head.
I've never done that.
You have hit
Why would you tell me that is not true, Keith?
You've never thrown anything.
I've never hit you in the head.
You have to go through seasons, though.
Oh my gosh. Do you understand that people have this perception of me that you have to continually push back on? We are very similar in personality. I need you to apologize.
I've never hit you in the head.
No, I've never hit you in the head either. I've never hit you in the head, Keith.
But you would, though.
No, I would not. I wanted to. Maybe I thought it and you thought that I did.
Probably have.
But I've never hit you in the head unless it was in my sleep. And if I did it in my sleep, it's because you probably deserved it.
But it's still a season. It's still, whatever it is. I wake up in the morning with a knot on my head. I look over at her and she kind of got that grin on her face. It's still a season that you have to make a decision that you were going to go through.
You owe me an apology.
Even through, okay, I have no empirical evidence that a strike to the head has ever taken place. I have other physical scars and
that
wounds.
Is not true. That is not true.
Because my wife is heavy-handed.
I am heavy-handed, but
you hit me.
But when I hit you, I'm laughing because I'm like, oh my God, that's funny. And
Mike Tyson used to hit people and we laughing at him at the same time too.
Oh my gosh, you're feeding into a narrative that
don't beat your spouse. Don't physically. We are gonna do a show on domestic violence. Y'all know I've worked in domestic violence for the last 7 months or so. We're going to do a show on that.
So anyway, so we're off task, but I got off task because you lied and you owe me an apology. But notwithstanding that, so we define friendship differently. Yes. And so for me, I enjoy spending time with him, even when he gets on my nerves. So because I'm not as engaging, it's the truth. Because may not be as engaging, and I'm also a very heady person, and so when I'm consumed with thinking about different things, I maybe get really quiet and moody, irritable. But it has nothing to do with you. It has to do with I'm thinking about all these different things I have to do, and I feel overwhelmed and consumed. So, but I generally like him as a person, even when he gets on my nerves. Even when you get on my nerves, you're still my friend. Mm. So if you got on my nerves and I did not consider you my friend, I would not be with you. Because life is too short.
That's fine. But you would, though. You know why?
But I would not.
Yes, you would, because we made a vow. And even though we're not friendly towards one another, and we're not acting friendly towards one another, we still made a vow to be together.
But
that is the foundation of our relationship.
But I made a vow to my first husband too. And you made a vow to your first wife.
Yeah, but we were not right for each other.
Okay, because you weren't friends.
Okay. Well, so here we go. So we can disagree about that. I think it's overrated. But I do believe here's our tips, right? So our tips are
marry your friend, y'all. Marry someone you consider a friend who you also love. I'm sorry, go ahead.
You know what we're really supposed to be talking about? We're supposed to be talking about how you deal with opposite sex friends in a relationship.
That is what we're supposed to be doing. But you went off task. I'm just following you.
Because
I am following the leader.
We're supposed to be talking about opposite sex friends in a relationship because moi believes that it is a dangerous thing on some level, especially people you used to be involved with.
Yeah, we disagree on that one.
I think we kind of disagree on that one. And you want to talk about hypocritical, because I did tell the audience that I was going to show them true hypocrisy. I can be friends with people who I've been romantically involved with in my past and have no issue or desire to want to try to get back with them or whatever.
Conversely, he does not believe that women can be friends with people that they used to date.
I don't believe that people who I'm with, you, can be friends with people who used to date. I don't want to hear from them. I want to talk to them. I don't want to see them.
You say that again now? You know what now?
No, I'm saying I don't want to hear from them. Don't want to talk to them. Don't want to see them. Don't want them around.
People that I used to date.
Absolutely.
And I don't have a problem with that. I don't. I've met people that you've dated. I've met people that you've dated, invited them to the house. Because my philosophy is, and we should talk about this in another episode, but my philosophy is if he's gonna cheat on me, he's gonna cheat on me with the friend that he used to date sitting right here, or if you're gonna cheat, you're gonna cheat, and there's nothing that I can do about that. So I believe that men and women can be friends. I think we both agree on that.
Yeah.
We differ in terms of the fact that I believe that I absolutely can. And I do consider some people that I used to date friends. I have no interest in them whatsoever. But
so up here to my house, it's gonna be a situation.
He does not think that they can be a part of a friend zone, which I think is crazy. Not necessarily a friend zone, but like I would not have a problem. And we've done it, going out to dinner with you and Alicia's mom. We've done it before.
Yeah, we're friendly and we're cool.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's hypocritical.
That's hypocrisy.
But our tips are, and we don't go out to dinner with your exes.
Because none of my exes live here. But I would hope that we would. That wouldn't be a problem for me.
It'd be a problem for me.
Well.
So listen, so our tips are, look, going into a relationship, you gotta have boundaries. You gotta have a good understanding. You gotta have boundaries. Whatever those boundaries are that make you comfortable, that work for you in your relationship.
That is true.
I think you should establish those. And it might be something as simple as no contact with former people. I'm not saying I'm not advising that. I'm just saying it may be something as simple as that. Or it may be something as simple as contact with people or opposite sex friends or whatever is fine, but just, be cognizant of being alone with people. I don't know. Whatever the boundaries are, you got to establish those boundaries. It's an agreement, and you got to kind of shake hands and say, this is our agreement, and we're going to live by this, because that goes back to the trust in the friendship. And speaking of trust, because it's the last thing we want to talk about today, I do want to say something about the boundaries. I think you have to be a little loose with the boundaries when there are children involved. Right. So in terms of your ex people.
Yeah. So
you have children.
Right. So if a boundary of mine was that he couldn't talk to his ex-wife or the mother of our oldest daughter, it would be problematic for our relationship, because that's just not realistic. So I had to reframe my expectations. And if that's a boundary of yours, that's a boundary of yours, and that's cool. That's your boundary. That just means that relationship is not for you. Right. But I knew going in, which is probably one of the reasons why my dad, God rest his soul, said, don't get involved with someone that has children, because particularly when you don't have any of your own, because it does add another dynamic onto the relationship. And we can absolutely talk about that in another episode too.
We'll talk about that.
But it adds another layer onto the relationship that if you don't have children, you have to navigate through. And I would share that, we can get deeper into it in a different episode, but I think that it took a minute, but I think overall I've navigated it pretty well, particularly before we had our son. Because it's challenging. It's super challenging. So I think the boundaries is good, but I think you have to understand what your limitations are with those boundaries and whether or not they're negotiable boundaries before you, I guess they're negotiable, not really boundaries, but determine whether or not the boundaries can be pushed back or realigned if the person that you're with has children. Before you fully get engaged and involved. Okay. Sorry.
So and I think in our final topic is around trust, because some of what we're discussing really is to what extent do you trust the other individual that you're with. But I think using the show that we're talking about as an example is, we know you should trust your spouse, right? Regardless, because otherwise why would you be together, your significant other? But what about your friends alone with your significant other? Because what happened during this, again, I don't watch the show, so I'm just throwing that caveat out there. But at some point, the two of them got friendly.
So my understanding, again, I don't watch it, is that there was a pool party, or Fallon invited Porsha and her sister to the house, because I think Simon owns some restaurants in Atlanta, and Fallon invited them, Porsha and her sister, to the house. And I guess on the show, that's the first time that Simon met Porsha. And apparently it's real messy. Simon and the father of Porsha's daughter are friends as well. But Fallon invited Porsha and the sister to the house, and they presented themselves as friends, and they had a pool party, and I guess that's where she first met Simon or whatever. And so the question was, if you're friends, how close do you allow your friends to get to your spouse or significant other, and kind of what are the boundaries associated with that?
Yeah, and I believe that, which I think is a big part of, and you alluded to this before with respect to if people are going to make a decision to cheat, they're going to cheat, right? So I know that we have friends, we have pool parties, we go to pool parties, we've been in close contact with our friends and our friends' friends and their spouses and whatnot. And I don't think we've ever had any, issues at all. But to your point about people's choices, I believe that chemistry is chemistry. And I don't think how far you try to separate people or keep people separated, chemistry wins every single time, which explains why you have people that have dated the brothers and sisters of their spouses,
right?
And gotten involved with people, with their spouses, like with their significant others, brothers and sisters. One of my best friends, is married to the sister of someone that I introduced him to, because he was all like, oh, I want to meet this girl. I was like, well, she's my friend, so I'll introduce you to her. So he was all in deep interest with the sister, and wound up ultimately hooking up with the sister.
So I don't.
Can't beat chemistry, man. Woo, chemistry, powerful.
Well, luckily I don't. My sister loves you, but y'all don't love each other like that. So, and I love your brother, but I don't love him like that. So we don't have nothing to worry about there. But with respect to friends, I wouldn't consider you a friend if I was uncomfortable with you being around my husband, or even being with my husband. You have my friend's cell phone numbers. You can call them. You may have lunch with them, and I don't know anything about it. I would not consider you a friend if I had issues. Now, there are some people, and we've had this issue earlier in our marriage, who I don't necessarily consider a friend, who is in the friendship zone, who I thought took liberties by reaching out to him directly, asking him to do a favor, and there are 50 million other people that she could have asked. And I did take issue with that because I thought that was crossing the line, because she didn't say anything to me about it. Yeah. She didn't come to me to request that you do whatever it is that she asked you to do. And we weren't that cool. We were cool, had the kind of the same circle, but did reach out to him directly. And so I found out about it through him. So luckily we're in a relationship where if we're going out or something's happening, we tell each other. So there's no shock and surprise. So somebody's like, because people like to be messy.
Yes.
Oh, I saw Keith with such and such and such, and he picked her up. Or, oh, I saw Monica with such and such and such, and he did X, Y, Z. So that's probably it. But if I consider you a friend, I shouldn't have to be concerned about you being with my husband.
Trust is deep.
Chemistry or no chemistry, because I think some of my friends are baddies.
Yeah. Oh, but I guess that goes back to the whole chemistry. Even if
like baddie means really, really fine. Yeah. Or if they're very attractive. But I don't know. Look, I don't know these terminologies you young people are using. I'm just using it because there's some young people on my Instagram. So my friends I think are very attractive, and I think he would agree with that.
But I have no chemistry at all, interest at all, and any of your friends. And that notwithstanding, the trust issue I think has to be, especially with this specific dynamic, as we close our show out. The trust issue has to be really, really, really deep. There has to be enough respect to where if I'm going to be alone with one of your friends, that there is full communication. We all know kind of what's going on, picking her up and giving her a ride somewhere, that kind of thing. That's how deep the trust issue must go. And that's really kind of our tip.
Yep, that's true.
The tip is, set boundaries and set the agreements
and talk
about it. It's like, look, if I'm ever going to be alone with one of your friends, you're probably going to get a text message saying, hey, I'm going to go pick up, Sally Sue from work and give her a ride to go fix her car or whatever. Yep. Those kind of things. And vice versa. If you have friends.
None of my male friends live here though, so.
No, but if you have female friends and they want to reach out to me and ask a favor or whatever.
That's not true. I do have male friends that live here, but none that would say, Monica, that would I call and say, can you take me somewhere?
Yes,
at any rate. So it's been a pleasure. This has been a really good conversation. To our IG and Facebook family, thank you, IG family. And if there are any subjects you all want us to talk about,
hit us up.
Within the relationship sphere, we're open. So let us know.
We'll talk about it. We'll put you on. We'll put you on the show.
So you all have a phenomenal Saturday, and we will see you all. I won't see y'all next week, but we'll be back. See y'all later.